Ring of Honor is now simply just AEW Dark Elevation 2.0. It's a show that really has no appeal to it and is a shadow of its former self. But before we get into that, we have to go back and look first at Ring of Honor's initial drop-off, which comes at a time after AEW was founded and poached a lot of their biggest stars, and they had just ran their disastrous side of the G1 Supercard at Madison Square Garden. Even more disastrous though is the fact that you aren't subscribed to this channel, so go ahead and click the subscribe button for more professional wrestling content. But talking about G1 Supercard, this was of course the show that Ring of Honor and New Japan co-promoted at Madison Square Garden. And while it was a good show as a whole, the Ring of Honor side didn't really have much to show for it, with their biggest match on the card being the world title match between Matt Taven, Jay Lethal and Marty Scurll, which was won by Matt Taven, which, not to be a Matt Taven hater, but unfortunately this was quite a big drop off for the Ring of Honor world title. The show also featured the weird post-match run-in from Enzo and Cass, and this was at a time where Enzo and Cass weren't really being looked at by any major companies, and despite the fact the post-match attack was planned, it was presented like it was some shoot, with Bully Ray shouting obscenities at Enzo and Cass as they attacked them, and the camera avoiding showing them. It was so weird, and then they didn't even get signed in the end, and just made Ring of Honor kind of look like a complete joke. Following the show, the relationship between Ring of Honor and New Japan ended, and Ring of Honor as a result lost a lot more of their talent, and they had already lost a lot of their talent because 3 months prior to this Madison Square Garden show was of course the formation of All Elite Wrestling, which was the first nail in the coffin for Ring of Honor. AEW was formed out of Ring of Honor's biggest stars, The Elite, Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, Adam Page, the Young Bucks, and even guys like SCU. These guys were without a doubt the biggest names in Ring of Honor, and when they signed and formed AEW, they of course departed from Ring of Honor. The only person from the Elite that stayed in Ring of Honor was Marty Scurll, and we'll get onto him in a second, of course. Ring of Honor would continue and stride on for the next year, but let me tell you that nobody was watching. Add to that incidents with Bully Ray and a fan backstage, as well as Joey Mercury leaving Ring of Honor and creating a secret Twitter account to expose Ring of Honor and all these other controversies, and Ring of Honor did not have a good 2019. And 2020 would start off even worse when the pandemic of course happened, and all the wrestling companies had to stop filming and taping shows, of course not including WWE, AEW and Impact, but Ring of Honor especially were a company that did not do anything for a while. During this time away from running shows, Marty Scurll had accusations made against him during the speaking out movement, and as a result exited from Ring of Honor, and things really were just not looking great for Ring of Honor. However, Ring of Honor would return in August of that year, and they returned with something to prove. Being in a pandemic meant that a lot of wrestlers weren't getting work, so when Ring of Honor relaunched, there was a surplus of talent that were ready to work shows and determined to work shows, and Ring of Honor took advantage of that. Like I said, they returned in August of that year running behind closed doors shows, but when they came out with live crowds in July 2021, Ring of Honor kind of started to cook again. Like I said, they were getting more talent. They had a big women's title tournament for the revamped Ring of Honor women's division, featuring the likes of Allison Kay, Willow Nightingale, and the eventual winner Roxy, aka Roxanne Perez. But just as quickly as things were looking up for Ring of Honor, they started to go further downhill once again, because just 3 months after the return of live crowds, on October 27, 2021, Ring of Honor would announce that it would go on hiatus after their final battle event in December, and they announced that all their talents would be released from their contracts. This was sad to see, and this more or less seemed like it was gonna be the end of Ring of Honor. Final battle took place with Jonathan Gresham winning in the main event to win the Ring of Honor World Championship, which was extremely deserved after how much he carried that company. Going forward, it was looking as though Ring of Honor was going to be running mainly as an indie, having non-contracted talent, and allowing the titles to be defended elsewhere on other promotions. But on the March 2nd episode of AEW Dynamite, Tony Khan opened the show with one of his trademark big announcements, and he announced that he had purchased Ring of Honor, including its assets, intellectual property, and video library. Ring of Honor's first show for AEW took place in April of 2022, of course being Supercard of Honor, and this show was very successful for Ring of Honor. It featured Minoru Suzuki winning the Ring of Honor Television Championship, Wheeler Yuta winning the Pure Championship, Jonathan Gresham retaining in the main event, and of course, the return of Samoa Joe to Ring of Honor in an absolutely huge moment. Ring of Honor would run on a pay-per-view to pay-per-view basis, having a pay-per-view about every 3 months, while the titles and wrestlers would appear on AEW programming quite regularly. And it was through these pay-per-views that we got to see the legendary matches between FTR and the Briscoes, which were easily the best matches Ring of Honor have had since being under Tony Khan. And while all these pay-per-views were taking place and Ring of Honor was getting all this TV time on AEW TV, Tony Khan was working behind the scenes to try and secure a TV deal for Ring of Honor. However, this would prove to be unsuccessful. Fans waited for months for some sort of announcement for a weekly Ring of Honor show, and when it eventually finally did come in February of 2023, it was announced that Ring of Honor's weekly product would just be airing on Honor Club, which is just Ring of Honor's monthly subscription service which existed pre-Tony Khan era Ring of Honor. Episodes were being taped in Universal Studios, back where the Impact Zone and the Dark Zone used to be, and you had surprise talents popping up at these tapings, and it was a lot of fun to start off with, but it went downhill really quick. Because like I said at the start of this video, Ring of Honor is nothing but an AEW Dark Elevation 2.0 and copy. And I get that that is not an unpopular opinion because that is being posted everywhere by everyone now, but when I'm seeing that Ring of Honor are announcing that 18 matches are taking place on a single episode of Ring of Honor, then what else am I actually supposed to think? This is a shadow of what Ring of Honor used to be. Ring of Honor used to be the work rate promotion with long matches and matches that allowed all the wrestlers to get their shit in. What are we getting with 18 matches on the card? We're getting 2-3 minute squash matches where matches can't be any sort of quality because of it and they're completely held back. My unpopular opinion is that Ring of Honor does not need a weekly product if they aren't going to have a TV deal. If they aren't going to have a TV deal, it's clear to see that not much investing is going to go into the Ring of Honor weekly product, and I think the quality of these shows on Honor Club is kind of proof of that. I think Ring of Honor was doing just fine under Tony Khan when they were running on a pay-per-view basis, having the titles appear on AEW TV. I thought that was just fine compared to what's going on right now. In a way, having a weekly Ring of Honor product is kind of pointless because Ring of Honor, like I said, it was the work rate promotion. It was the product every week you could watch and get these crazy work rate matches. But that's literally just what AEW is now. Why would we watch this work rate promotion when AEW already exists and has better names and better stars and does it way better and is actually the work rate promotion like Ring of Honor is not? Like I said, they have 20 matches on each of their weekly shows. So yeah, like I said, my opinion is that Ring of Honor just needs to stick to running pay-per-view events. A weekly Ring of Honor show is not needed if there's not going to be any sort of backing or money behind it. I think the second AEW Collision was announced and it was announced AEW was getting a third show, it was kind of over for Ring of Honor at that point. And like I said, Ring of Honor now is simply just AEW Dark 2.0. It's a show where wrestlers are just thrown onto it. There's no stories, no personality to it. It's just kind of pointless viewing, if I'm being honest. Once Collision came in and they got rid of Dark and Dark Elevation, Rampage kind of became what Dark is, and now Ring of Honor has kind of became what Dark Elevation was. If there's one positive to Ring of Honor though, it's that Big Bill is there. We might not have wanted him at MSG, but modern day Big Bill absolutely cooks.